I thought he was Protestant, and then he wasn't Protestant, but he was sort of Protestant. And then I really, because I think religion is such a central piece for that story. Thinking of what you asked me before, I think it's a lot about emancipation. And I think that, so I was really curious about the narrative of it. So, from my understanding, for what I have studied, it was the break from the church, which I find is really interesting because it's sort of a break from, it was almost like England was a colony of Rome, like all the other countries. So I think there was something very interesting at that point when there's a break from the church, and it's also not something archaeological because it didn't get divorced. So there's, the Church of England, and I think there was a moment where there was a flirtation with Protestant religion, but then that was too dangerous, because there was a lot of, the moment that you take out the institution of the church, there's a lot of possibilities for anarchy, as there were in many other countries in Europe. And then I think there's this whole coming back to something which is close to Catholic religion, and the icons and the rituals and the colors and the routine, but yet not anymore. So it was very hard to tell that story because whenever, I have the feeling, well, maybe if you don't, whenever I read about him, I thought like he's Protestant, and actually not. So it was very hard to, in so little time, tell that and also not get bogged down by it because this is not a history lesson. But it was a very interesting trajectory to me because it's very fluctuating, the way that he is from one side and then he is from another side. And at the end, he is the head of the church. And that's why I think it was so hard for Katherine because I think he was three things. He was God, he was the king, and he was a man. And I think she probably liked the man or didn't like the man and hated the king and, was not interested in him as, the one who pretended to be God. But I don't know if I answered your question, but for me it was a very interesting journey to understand the sort of shades of grey of that character.
And so the next film you play.
The next film, yeah.
Which was your directorial debut.
Yeah.
It premieres at Cannes 2002. Now you have Firebrand, another historical film. What's kind of like that journey that's been from Madame Satã to Firebrand?
It's a really interesting question. So Madame Satã is my first film. It was made in 2002, but I actually started thinking about it and wanting to make it in 1994, so it took me 8 years to do it. And I learned, it was a film, as any first film, is like a shout, so it's very messy, it's very loud, and it's very angry. And it's a period film. It's a film that takes place in Rio in the late 1920s. And it was a huge inspiration, not that I'm looking at my work as my inspiration, but it was a huge inspiration on why I did also Firebrand. So it's the first time we put it together. I feel very happy and honored that this is happening here in LA in particular. And I think I learned a lot from it. And the question with Madame Satã that I think I brought to Firebrand was that the frame is the character, that there's no framing as we call it. It was Madame Satã. It's a film that it's almost like there's a wire between me and the protagonist, and I'm going there with him and the camera's going there with him. And I think this is something that I brought to Firebrand in a big way. And also the fact that it's wonderful. I think that it's not that I love to do period, but I do actually love to do period because it allows you to sort of fly from reality in a way that, and create this world, which is a very specific world. So I think Madame Satã, and I think there's something between the two films, which is a sense of smell. I think when you see Madame Satã, you probably smell his body, and I think here there was the whole idea of smelling from the leg. I think it's so it's this element which is not. It's almost like if I were too hungry for cinema and I wanted to do something else besides the sound and the image. And I think smell is something, and temperature is something that I think is in both of the films.
Well, it's a beautiful 35 frames, and I'm so glad you took that journey from Madame Satã to Firebrand. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.